Well, good morning and welcome to St. James. It is good to be here together with those of you who are in person and together with those of you who are online. Wherever you are on this beautiful Sunday morning, or if you're watching later in the week, recorded, wherever you are, I hope it's beautiful there. I hope you're experiencing life in its fullest moments. I hope that you can catch your breath just a moment long enough to be present and perhaps hear a word that might be encouraging to you as we enter into this time of worship. Today begins a whole new series. I'm doing 3 weeks on attitudes of gratitude. With this week appropriately being, since November the 1st was All Saints' Day, today we will be talking about our ancestors. We will be talking about our ancestors in faith and our ancestors in life, because I'm not sure that there's much difference between the two. So we will be looking at those two and thinking about how together those pieces can speak to us and offer us yet one more way to be thankful in this life. Now, as we begin our time together this day, I want to invite you to do a practice that will allow you to be thankful for your ancestors. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes, and if you can bring to mind either someone you've seen a picture of or someone who has gone before you in faith, and bring that person to your mind and imagine for just a moment that that person is standing over your shoulder and watching you. And imagine that that person is standing over your shoulder and watching you and smiling. And as you enter into these moments, as you enter into life, that this person is cheering you on, is bringing you encouragement. Imagine all of those that have gone before you, whether they are perhaps parents or grandparents or great-great-grandparents, if you knew those, whoever it might have been, or it could have been a key player in your life, someone like a youth leader or a friend in faith, or someone in your small group somewhere, or a Bible study, or it could even be a pastor, someone who spoke a word into your life, and in speaking that word, encouraged you in your going forward. I want you to hold that picture there, and if you want to glance over your shoulder and just be thankful. Thankful that they shared that word, that they encouraged you then, and if I'm to understand the biblical witness, they continue to cheer you on now, and be thankful for all they did to make your life possible in this moment. Breathe in your great thanks for that cloud of witnesses, and breathe out. And breathe in thanks for that great cloud of witnesses. And as you breathe out, imagine you too breathe forward faith into those who will see you as their ancestor in faith. Breathe in and breathe out. Be present and thankful for the God who has brought your ancestors into your life, and be mindful of those who have laid the foundation for us to be in this space, online, all of those pieces that made our lives possible. Thanks to all of our ancestors.
Our reading today comes from a book called, what's it called? The Violence of Love. And it is written by Oscar Romero. Oscar Romero was Archbishop in El Salvador and in the Catholic faith, and he was murdered while he was serving Mass for standing with the Salvadoran people. And this is one of the things that he wrote towards the end of his life that I'm going to be reading to you. My life has been threatened many times. I have to confess that as a Christian, I don't believe in death without resurrection. If they kill me, I will rise again in the Salvadoran people. As a shepherd, I am obliged by divine law to give my life for those I love, for the Salvadoran people, including those Salvadorans who threaten to assassinate me. If they should go so far as to carry out their threats, I want you to know that I offer my blood to God for justice and the resurrection of El Salvador. His words. We're going to spend a moment of reflection as we watch a video from the work of the people about community and ancestors.
God of friendship, I come to know your love and care through the embodied presence of others. Weave me together with kindred spirits. Knit me more closely with friends of the soul. Cultivate in me a kinship with humanity, so that I recognize my struggles and joys in others. In my loneliness, reveal to me this communion, and may I be a solace to others who ache for connection. Transform me through conversation and loving presence. Help me to see how I am part of a great circle of pilgrims, witnesses, ancestors, and mystics who guide me to true connection with you. Gather me into your great wide heart, so I might discover I am never separate, but always held in love.
In my life, I am fortunate that two of my ancestors are still alive. My mom and dad are cheering me on, and often, though they keep telling me their plan is to go back to in-person church at my home church sometime soon, and today may have been that day. They may be watching this recorded later on. But I can't imagine two more fervent cheerleaders in my life than mom and dad. And what's interesting is I listen to them and they tell me the stories of further ancestors. Primarily, I knew my grandmother on my mother's side, and I vaguely knew my grandmother on my father's side, but I didn't really know my grandfather, my mother's father, because he died when she was 12. And I only, as a toddler, knew Dad's dad. And I called him Daz. And I didn't really ever have a name for Mom's father. And so I call him today, his first name was Edward, my middle name. And so I call him Papa Eddie. When I think about him or talk about him, I feel like because he's one of my ancestors, he deserves a name, a familiar name, because I believe the interesting thing is, as my parents tell me stories about my grandfathers, I hear in them echoes of me. Dad tells me regularly when we're having a conversation about technology and about modern technology, about how my grandfather was on the cutting edge of technology, that he was part of a communication team that made communication during World War II possible. That he had been an ambulance driver in World War I, and that later on he helped communicate during World War II. And so I remember the stories of Dawes, my grandfather on my dad's side, and those stories speak to me. Apparently, my interest in innovation and technology and fascination with it, Dad says, I wish my father could be here because you two could sit and have a conversation about innovation and ways of thinking about technology and its use in everyday life and how important it is. And my grandfather, on Mom's side, the one I call Papa Eddie, though I never knew him, was a Methodist pastor and preached in New York on Long Island. And he served the church for a long time. It was serving a church when he died at age 47. Who he had served for 17 years. So this idea that United Methodist pastors move around every 2 or 3 or 4 years, and the fact that I've stayed for, now I'm in my 31st year here, apparently it's in my blood. It's in my DNA. My grandfather stayed for as long as he was alive in a place. Now, I don't know if I'm going to stay here as long as I'm alive, but we'll see. I mean, I'm still alive and I'm still here, so we'll see. The truth of it all is, I think that sometimes we don't know what to do with our ancestors. In fact, in the church, we don't talk about them as ancestors. We talk about them more as the saints and those who have gone on before us. But I think every one of us in this room owes our lives to our ancestors. Whatever they had to face in coming to this country, no matter what way they were brought here or came here, whether it was by choice or enslavement, those ancestors survived and passed on life to us. And we bear witness to them because the DNA gets passed on to us. We carry forward the gift of life that was given them and that they gave to our ancestors to this day. And it's something to be thankful for. You're here today because of your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents going back thousands and thousands of years. We owe a debt of gratitude to those folks who laid a foundation for us to even be alive and breathing right now. That we bear witness to them just in the way our bodies look. The DNA that makes the color of our skins and sometimes the color of our, well, not just sometimes, the color of our eyes, the color of our hair, and whether we get to keep it or whether it comes off at some point in our lives, all of that is passed on to us by people who have come before us, who have laid the groundwork. And it's beautiful. And the writer of the book of Hebrews in chapter 12 says these words. Now, today, I'm reading a translation today called the First Nations version. It's a translation for indigenous people. And it seems like to me that it is people of an African lineage and people of an Asian lineage and people of an indigenous lineage here in this part of the world are very much honoring of their ancestors. And for some reason, white people just don't get ancestry honoring as part of their DNA. And I think that's a terrible, sad mistake. So I had to turn to someone else who I felt like had better words of honoring ancestors than the Greeks who wrote down Hebrews. So this is from Hebrews, but it's a First Nation translation, and as such recognizes, I think, the importance of those who have gone before. And interestingly enough, the ones who have gone before, that we might call saints, our indigenous siblings call truth tellers. So listen to these words from chapter 12 of the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. It's entitled, "A Great Cloud of Truth Tellers." It begins in this way. We are surrounded by a great cloud of truth tellers who have shown us what it means to trust the Great Spirit. So let us lay to the side everything that weighs us down and the broken ways that so easily wrap around our legs to trip us. And let us run as if we are in a long-distance race, setting a steady pace and heading toward the goal. This means we must keep our eyes on Jesus, the trailblazer of our spiritual ways, the one who was first to reach the end of the trail. The joy that lay before him gave him the strength to suffer the cross and willing to bear its shame. He now sits at Creator's right hand in the place of greatest honor. This is a word for us this morning from the good news. Thanks be to God. I wish this morning that I had brought my pictures that sit in my spiritual space at home. And I don't know if you have a spiritual space at home. Every space is spiritual. Can we just be honest with each other? We got a cool church building right here, and we come here, and this is a spiritual space for us, but what makes it spiritual is the people I'm looking at here and the people joining us online. That's what makes this spiritual. Otherwise, it's bricks, or actually cinder blocks. There's some bricks too. I'm trying to remember. Yes, there are bricks too. Cinder blocks and bricks, and some wood here and there. And some concrete in the floor, and some more wood under my feet. But in the end, what makes this space sacred is that we're here, and that God's here. So there's no place we go that's not sacred, but I have a space that reminds me of the sacred at home. So it's just kind of a pointer space. And in my pointer space, I have different objects that remind me of my connection to the larger universe. I have a cross, and I have a crucifix. The difference being that the crucifix shows Jesus still on the cross. You might have seen one, for instance, in a Roman Catholic church. And I also have a cross. And by tradition, in Protestant circles, we have an empty cross. Now, sometimes I think that allows us to skip over one of the most important things our ancestors did. One of the greatest, the ancestor of faith that we have in Jesus, and that was he willingly gave up his life and faced the shame of the cross because of love. And when we take him off the cross and only remember the resurrected piece, we forget that there was suffering involved that opened the door for us to see what faith looks like. Because you see, faith and love invite us to pour ourselves out every single moment. And as the creator and perfecter of our faith, Jesus showed us that way. We give ourselves away. We honor that ancestor in the faith, the one that we call Son of God